Alright guys, today we're going to talk about why I think the Hunter is one of the most underrated and slept on classes in Wrath of the Lich King Classic. The Hunter is the least popular class in Wrath of the Lich King Classic, and I've always found that quite surprising because they bring great utility to a raid and they're also very fun to play. Hunters also gear up very fast because they have very low gear competition. They only really have competition when it comes to non-tier set pieces with the Enhancement Shaman, which is another underrepresented class. And their tokens are shared with Shamans and Warriors, which again are not very common in Wrath of the Lich King. Maybe less so later on in the expansion, but overall, Hunters gear up very quickly. They do provide great DPS. They are what I would consider the top of middle of the pack. They're not like a top tier DPS, but it's very reliable DPS for progression raiding, especially when difficulty is going to pick up in Ulduar hard modes, since we have no mana issues. They have extremely long range with 41 yards, which is great for bosses with adds, and they can help with ad management greatly. They have fun pet customizability and some of the most fun spells in the game, and in Wrath of the Lich King they have loads of quality of life improvements. So let's go through these topics in a little bit more detail. But before we do that guys, I've got a very secret video on my channel for subscribers only, where you can effectively make 300 to 600 gold per day in about 20 minutes, and it requires barely any effort at all. It's just simple auction house flips. So check out the subscriber video for more information on that. Now, one of the most useful abilities that a Hunter provides to a raid is Misdirection. This dramatically helps a tank pick up additional enemies on boss fights. And combined with Frost Trap, the Hunter really is the best class for ad management in any raid encounter. Overall, they just help smooth out encounters much better than any other class. They also have the Scorpid Sting 3% increased range and melee hit debuff when you don't have a Boomkin in the group, and every single Hunter spec can obviously provide that. They also, many people don't know this, they do actually have a purge. They don't just dispel enrage effects anymore, they can purge magic effects. In the survival spec, they do provide the replenishment buff for the raid. They also have a 10% attack power buff in Marksman, like the Enhancement Shaman does, and they also provide an extra 5% reduced armor debuff if they do use a Wasp. This will very likely be a slight hit to their DPS, but if no one else is providing that debuff, it can be very useful, particularly obviously in 10-mans. Also, not many people know, but in Beast Mastery spec, you can use a Worm to provide a debuff that's effectively as powerful as full stacks of Sunder armor or Expose armor. Again, this is probably only going to be useful for 10-mans, but it would mean that the Warriors and Rogues don't need to bother applying their Expose armor and Sunder armor, and they can focus more on their DPS. But obviously Beast Mastery is not the greatest DPS in the game, but it's just something that I thought I would add. Overall, their DPS isn't bad in the Marksman or Survival specs. They are at the top or the middle of the pack. When Ulduar releases, they will switch to Marksman once they can get their hands on the Skyforge crossbow. And Marksman is a spec that scales very well with amp penetration that becomes more abundant in later phases. Long story short, their DPS will become even better. They have great AoE DPS with Volley and Explosive Trap. This no longer has a cooldown on it, and it can also crit. And like I said earlier, they're great for long progression fights because they have absolutely no mana issues, and their range is actually 41 yards. So they can pull enemies from a very long distance. There's also a lot of layers of depth that have been added to the class in Wrath of the Lich King. For instance, your talent trees, which allows you to customize your pets on a different level. You have 3 different talent trees depending on the pet that you tame. These are Ferocity, more focused on optimizing DPS, Tenacity, mainly used for leveling and soloing, and then Cunning, more favoured towards PvP. But you have so many different useful pet abilities for different aspects of gameplay. For instance, taking on specific classes in the arena, dealing with different encounters in raids, soloing elite mobs, or gold farming. The pets also have great quality of life improvements. You can swap your pets from the stables every 5 minutes. You can now raise their happiness with a mend pet glyph, so you no longer have to have your bag stocked with random meat item. Their movement speed is a lot faster and they hold aggro much better now. You can actually use a bear to even hold aggro on multiple enemies. A number of the most fun abilities have also been added in Wrath of the Lich King, like for instance Disengage, which allows the hunter to jump back. It's very useful for kiting mobs and obviously players. It also has a lot of sneaky opportunities like Exploration and Exploits, especially as right now you can jump through the gate after Gothic the Harvester and pull enemies to the rest of the raid, so that you can effectively clear the trash on the way to Horseman while you are doing Gothic the Harvester. And it wouldn't surprise me if more speedrunning tactics like that appeared in the future that only the hunter can take advantage of. You've also got Freezing Shot. You no longer have to go into melee range to put an enemy in a freezing trap. They also have a freedom-like ability called Master's Call, which will free the hunter and the pet from movement impairing effects. And Deterrence is finally an actual good defensive ability. I mean, it was fairly decent in TBC, but it had a significant cooldown. Now the cooldown is much less. You can get hit by attacks or spells, apart from some exceptions like Chaos Bolt and Cheap Shot. And to finish off with some more quality of life improvements, they can't clip the auto attacks anymore, so you don't have to focus on that very irritating big weapon swing timer add-on anymore. You can just chill and enjoy your actual rotation. Traps also don't share a cooldown anymore. They only share cooldowns with their specific type, so, you know, Freezing Trap will share a cooldown with Frost Trap, for instance, and then Immolate will share a cooldown with Explosive Trap, etc. The ammo also does now stack to 1000 rather than 200, so you are much less likely to run out of ammo. By the way guys, please be sure to check out my second channel where I release news updates, reviews and guides for other games that are not World of Warcraft. On there at the moment I have a little video about how you can actually play Fable 2 on your PC, and also a great Oblivion mod list that perfects some of the minor flaws in the game. But anyway guys, my name is MetaGoblin. Until my next video, ciao.